What is going on? Welcome back to Trending Stocks. Today we're going to talk to you about SoundHound. Give you a quick overview of some of the data points, break it down on what is really moving it, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So SoundHound is slightly red, 0.06, but it's been a very volatile day. 1581 the low, 1667 the high. So it is starting to recover fairly well. 48.6 million shares being traded, 92.7 is the average. So still a lot of attention being placed on it. Not as much as yesterday, but I think yesterday was very abnormal. One thing that did kind of resurface as well that I think in reality really helped SoundHound was this right here. So Trump highlights partnership investing $500 billion in AI. Even though it doesn't directly state SoundHound, it does go based on this joint partnership between OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank. And as of right now, SoftBank does actually own 1+ million shares of SoundHound. So potentially this is where you have logic dictating that maybe SoundHound might be incorporated, not in the direct obviously partnership, but maybe indirectly SoundHound could be used. So let me know your viewpoint on that. Aside from that, no actual news associated to SoundHound today. Just yesterday's news was fairly good. Nothing on social media either. So it is kind of just following its technicals. On a interesting side note, you do actually see shorts returning 831,000 shares. At its peak, they were increasing. So first thing, they were increasing roughly around 642,000. And then, of course, you have them returning a lot since then. So that's giving it a nice push higher. So it kind of started roughly around here. This is where they started to really return. So it still comes down to shorts. And I think it was just a matter of time essentially before shorts did kind of realize, hey, SoundHound could really move higher. And especially if it gets over roughly around that $17, $18 range on a technical standpoint, then this is where they could be in some serious trouble. So yeah, right now returning some shares, and I obviously analyzing this by them returning doesn't really justify the red day that was largely happening. So again, something to kind of keep in mind. Utilization 97.88, and through IBKR does indicate roughly around 1.4 million shares is available to be shorted. So let me know your viewpoint on that. Moving on, looking at options, 16 million in calls, 4.19 million in puts. 46% of all the options being done today are optimistic in nature. Just looking as far as the total dollar value, so we're pretty much halfway through the day. 20.3 million for that. 32.5 was yesterday. 27.7 was the day prior. So you are seeing a lot of just bullishness based on the put/call ratio. And so I think a lot of people are really amped up and ready for SoundHound to really get back into the 20s with a vengeance. Because like I said, I think the market's right now digesting what Trump has stated so far, what he might also potentially state in the next little bit. But I think ultimately AI is going to flourish. So SoundHound being a domestic obviously company, it is going to benefit from pretty much everything that is going to be coming out. So tariffs won't really hit it or anything. So I think SoundHound is very well suited for kind of a continued push higher. But what do I know, right? I'm not a financial advisor. You do whatever floats your boat. But of the call options that are being purchased today, you still see that consensus for it to be above roughly around that $20 range. The optimism for it to be above 25 kind of went away, but you do still see $20 on the table. The bears, though, they are anticipating for it to be sub roughly for this week, sub 14, for next week, sub 16. So more of a continued push higher. Big tech is unveiling their earnings next week. So if positive, then you could see that kind of pushing SoundHound up a little bit higher. But these are all the transactions occurring on the secondary market above $100,000. You are seeing big money buying the dip. All these kind of spurts of buying, anything that shows as a ask is a buy. So group of four there, group of four, pretty good, nice group there. First thing, so yeah, big money is all over the place. So I still see them buying it up and really propelling it higher. And based on the last 13 Fs, looking at the ownership, it does show that institutions did increase their position by 34.88% quarter over quarter. So very positive. I really like to see institutions getting into a company. Shows that they see a lot more upside, because retail, nothing wrong with retail, but sometimes they're very disorganized. Retail, on a side note, did increase their position by 35.8%. So of course, just the basic math, that's already kind of overdone a little bit. So that does mean that most likely there was some dilution occurring during Q4, even though SoundHound hasn't actually disclosed their last or their next earnings. Should be probably mid to late February if I was to kind of have a guess. But just to give you a quick overview based on the last earnings, they did have this right here. So they did increase their outstanding shares by 49.8%. So I think there is a little bit more dilution happening behind the scenes, and this is why you do see institutions, retail, and also strategic entities all increasing their position. Aside from that though, no new analyst ratings, nothing along those lines. So hopefully someone will be buying it soon, maybe post earnings. That's where it'll probably get a little bit more attention. So let me know your viewpoint on that. One thing I do want to say though, if you're looking for all this good information, such as analyst ratings, forecast for upcoming earnings, ownership, take a look at IBKR in the description below, completely free to have all of this information, so very advantageous. But on the actual chart itself, so right now it is obviously it was kind of very volatile, but it was able to fight back, still staying above that ALMA and also that 50-day moving average. So I think the volatility is done. It's obviously done consolidating. Now it's ready to continue its next leg up. One thing to note though, SoundHound is considered very oversold. You have also a nice bullish deviation, so the blue line above the orange, but at the same time, like I said, it is very oversold. So good piece of news, you could see a push higher, and then that news doesn't actually have to come from SoundHound itself. It could be more on a macro standpoint. Even though right now for the rest of the week, there isn't really all that much in data points to really prompt a push higher. You have this right here, existing home sales forecast right now 4.1. The home sales permits and builds that came out last Friday, both were better than the forecast. So it is fair to assume that this is going to be equally as good. So maybe that might also be some good concrete data to really prompt some buying. But let me know your thoughts on SoundHound. So where do you see things going? Do you think it is going to break down, or do you think it is just amping up just to kind of touch that $20 again? So what's your overall thoughts? And when it comes down to this 500 billion, do you think that any of it indirectly is going to trickle down to SoundHound, obviously through SoftBank or this, I guess, joint partnership that they did have? So let me know your viewpoint. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon. I give buy signals on stocks, options, and crypto. Many of them have been absolutely on point and bangers, so definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.